pressed go live. Hello, good morning. It's Friday. It's 7:30-ish, very-ish this morning. It's really very cold, and I don't have any water at home this morning. A pipe has gone apparently up on Thankray Close.
Do you have coffee or tea?
Sorry?
Do you have coffee? Do you have coffee? Which is quite important. Have you got enough water for coffee, or no coffee?
I did. There was enough water. There was water left in the kettle, so I had a coffee.
Good.
How is everybody this morning, apart from cold?
I'm not cold. My house is lovely.
Yeah, it's nice here as well. I've got lots of water, lots of hot water as well.
Yeah,
looking forward to a nice shower after this.
I wish I'd known you. I'd have done this from the bath if I'd known you hadn't got water, David.
I think on behalf of all of our viewers, we hope that you have plenty of bubble bath.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going out in a bit, like shortly after this, and it will still be -5 degrees, I think. And I'm actually looking forward because, of course, I grew up in Romania where the winters are, -10, -15, -20. So actually, I'm looking forward to see how it is.
I was thinking that it must be like summer here for you.
No, but I do think you build up like the resistance, and the resilience to cold, because obviously you're dressed differently. But like I went to school, walked to school when it was, I don't know, -10 plus. And I think you have different types of clothing in those like extreme climate weathers. I think you're cold in the UK because you don't actually have, the proper winter clothes. And why would you? Because most time of the year, the weather is quite mild. So you need to layer up and yeah, it'll be fine.
That's right. And when it was -10 and snow on the ground and you had to walk uphill both ways.
It was not uphill. It was a town, but yeah, often there was snow, and yeah, the snow was until like your knees or like even higher sometimes. So yes, it can be quite fun. But this I think teaches you how to layer the clothing properly, how to go if you went to like any mountains or any snowy region, how actually not to freeze like outside. Or also like how to go camping even in milder weather and like not actually feel very cold. So there are tips. You can do a coffee bus and about clothing and waterproof and windproof clothing.
Yeah. So we what you really needed then was a Tiger on Demand service to get you to school. So we've got a few things to talk about today. One is going to be the expansion of Tiger on Demand. The other is, Tiger on Demand is starting the expansion. Okay. The other is the issue between the Mayor of Cambridge and Peterborough and Stagecoach over some bus routes. And then we're going to talk about local government reform, because that is still the big ongoing issue. So Tiger on Demand, I'm going to try to do something a little bit clever if I can. And hopefully this is going to work.
So we're all aghast waiting.
Yeah, no, I should probably, hopefully people can see. This is from, if you Google Tiger on Demand, you'll be able to see that there are some new, some coloured blobs on there. So the yellow one is the existing Tiger on Demand area, and there's 4 new ones starting. So you might be able to see, possibly not, but in the bottom of the yellow area, there's a blue area, which is another Tiger on Demand zone. And then underneath that, there's a purple area, which overlaps with a little bit with the blue one, which is another Tiger on Demand area. Then you've got a red one and a green one, which are 2 other areas. So I'll zoom in a little. So this is the existing Tiger on Demand zone. and then here's the next one, the blue one, sort of Camborne out to Patworth and so on. Then another one which is Camborne and going south of Camborne, out that way. And then if we come over here, we've got this one which is running between Ely and sort of Soham area, and so we're actually up as far as Littleport. And then a fourth one here, which is March to Chatteris and surrounding areas. And the dots are the things are the virtual bus stops, I think. So that's the yellow one already exists. The other 4 are starting. I'm going to stop sharing so you can see my beautiful face.
Oh, that's great, because I read on Facebook yesterday there's like been 2 years and no buses funded by the mayoral preset. So it's actually good to see they exist. Sorry, taking a political dig.
No. So this is it's probably actually. Shall we cover that? This was something. So Paul Bristow is the Conservative candidate for mayor, and he had a post up saying, in a set of villages there is no bus service. The thing is, that's not true. You've got the Tiger on Demand. Now, you might well think, the service isn't good enough, or something like that, or needs to be lived in a different way. That's and you can have that discussion, and that's fine. To say there's no bus service is just factually wrong, and quite frustrating that Mr. Bristow would say that. If you're going to have a discussion, you need to do it from a set of facts. Now, from sort of reality. Now, I can't remember the name of the councillors, because it's early in the morning. There's a councillor I was engaging with on Facebook who was saying the service the service isn't good enough, and that it's sometimes difficult to get a Tiger on Demand bus, particularly in this sort of area west of the A1. I don't know, because I don't have enough experience of using it, and I think probably you need that experience of living that in that area, or the data from the combined authority. That's possible. It's this frustration. I don't want to be too sort of. I'm trying not to be partisan. I have been somewhat concerned by some of the things that Mr. Bristow has been saying, and also the manner in which he's saying.
If you don't want to be partisan, I'll say it if you want. It's fine, because I've got a load of Conservatives who are really concerned and seem to be monitoring everything I say on Facebook, thinking that I've switched sides and blah 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 and all this. And I make it clear, I've got no political affiliations at all. But from my perspective, what I want from a mayoral election campaign is good campaigning that informs and delivers and demonstrates what vision you've got for Cambridgeshire as a mayor and for the combined authority as a mayor. And some of the stuff that Paul Bristow is doing is absolutely shocking. And he offers no vision whatsoever. And what he's doing is twisting reality. In the way that he's doing things, and his comments, like talking about, as other Conservatives are, the failed mayor and all this stuff, and it isn't good enough. The people of Cambridgeshire deserve better. What they need is a positive campaign from Paul that says, this is how I am going to make Cambridgeshire and Peterborough better as a combined authority mayor, and that includes putting forward an understanding of how he is going to work with other parties, having especially if he is going to run such a divisive campaign. Because if he runs a divisive campaign and he gets elected, which he might, he then has to start to deliver. And the only way the combined authority mayor can deliver is by working with the other local authorities. And he can't do that if the first thing he's done is upset them all. And so, I'll say this, we deserve better. And I'll say something else. I got something wrong on Facebook earlier on this week, where I twisted and got my facts wrong about the ending of the Sunday bus service in Whittlesea. And I will correct that when I've got the dates and things sorted, and I will correct it. But I will correct it. And it's about time Paul started to correct some of the things he's got wrong. And it's about time some of the people behind his campaign started to push him to deliver a better campaign. It is not good enough for the people of Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. And that, if he gets elected, Paul's a very clever guy. He's got a lot of ability, but if he gets elected, he's in trouble.
I think that's, I mean, in my view, that's like an issue like with like a lot of the Cambridgeshire politics, because of course we have mayoral elections the same time as county, and I think not everyone, but like lots of Conservatives and Lib Dems like think they can like have like this like super majority of the council and like have like the same party like working together on their vision. And I think it's like the most likely scenario by far is the no overall control. And I think you have to be prepared for the thing that you have to like work with other parties, and you have to have like coalitions, or you have to have at least the support of certain other individuals, independents, other parties, to actually get anything through. But I think those people are very, very confident in politics and the current polling, and think, well, like can be a super Lib Dem majority or a super Conservative majority on the county. I think neither of them are possible at the moment. I think politics is very mixed in our region, and a lot can change until May, and you have to be prepared that it can be a no overall control, and coalitions will have to be made again, either coalitions, Conservatives-led coalitions, or another party-led coalitions. But it is not a safe area in any way for like any party, because of how diverse it is.
I mean, I agree with you. The other thing about it is it's volatile. The polls have shifted quite a lot. So on. The other thing is, I agree on the I agree what you're saying. The other thing with the need for like wanting, and this applies to everyone, you want the election to be based on reality, partly from the point of view of you want to make politics work, and you want to make the system better than it is, but also it's like, okay, in terms of the sort of educational role, it's like, okay, we've got this system, the system running Tiger on Demand. It's not working, or I can't. So really sorry, I can't remember the name of the council I was talking to. Saying it's not working that well or not working well enough in my part of the area. Okay, how do we improve that?
It's working better than it was before Tiger on Demand was in place.
Well, I agree, but you could well say, look, there could be there's an issue here. Let's try and fix it. But it's difficult to do when the opening gambit is something which just isn't accurate.
I think
and that's frustrating, because it's like we're having this conversation with another councillor, and he was saying, well, look, in my neck of the woods, it's not that good. Have you tried it over here? And I was like, well, yes, once. Do you think the service is good enough? Well, I don't know, because I haven't used it up sort of Silton Stortrey way, often enough to say, and that felt a bit more productive. I'm going to go back to the and this is me speculating, the maps of the new Tiger on Demand areas. It's interesting that you've got the overlapping ones in South Cambs. I wonder if that's to make sure that the Tiger on Demand buses aren't all pulled by gravity into one place, and so that there's always, I don't know, but there's always coverage of.
The thing the map shows to me is it shows how Tiger on Demand is growing, and it does show that we've got the potential for something that will spread basically and spread county-wide. And as a Whittlesea resident, I would love a Tiger on Demand service, because I think there are areas of Whittlesea that buses should access that don't.
Yeah.
And you can see how it's spread, but you can also then see how within that you could create buses that link some of the main centres as well. So you can create something where you can pretty much get around the county, and economically. And this, is where, my thoughts as a Conservative come in. That's good. It means people can access work all over the county if they want to, and they can get there by bus. Maybe a bit of a palaver, but as this emerges, that'll improve. but you can see it. And you know, one of the comments I would make about the mayoral election again is Paul Bristow is saying he won't increase the precept. That means that in effect, the value of that precept over the 4 years during which he's mayor will diminish because of inflation. So Paul has got to, one of the things Paul has got to say is, how is he going to keep these services running when he has basically less money to do it? Or is he going to cut some of these on-demand services?
I mean, it would be really. I suppose we say. I hope I'm not speaking out of turn. It would be lovely to have Paul on, and if he wants to come on and have a chat about coffee buses in politics, he'd be very welcome.
Well, you know, I'm starting my my radio show on Thursday on More Music Radio, which is More Music with a Z, by the way. But that's going to be Whittlesey focused basically, but Whittlesey and Peterborough. And I'm hoping that I'm going to be interviewing Nick on Sunday and recording an interview with Nick on Sunday for it. And it's called Better Politics for a reason, because that's the thing I passionately believe in at the moment, is the need for better politics. And I have offered Paul an opportunity to come on there and talk about his positive vision and talk about his positive vision for the mayoralty. And, you know, it'll be without the Yaboo and all that stuff. And the offer's still there, and the offer will be there for other mayoralty candidates when they come forward as well.
I've just put up the address there. More Music Radio. It's available on DAB as well.
So
in some areas, it's available on DAB. It's worth saying, not everywhere, but yeah.
So I mean, back to the Tiger on demand, I think there's some actual points to be made in terms of feedback, and I think now that the era expanded with more and more people using it, it'll actually be good to hear, you know, if any of our viewers use Tiger on demand, what you thought, where it could be improved. But the whole thing of, you know, people who are saying, well, you know, it doesn't work perfectly, or like, you know, from my perspective as well, I tried to book it once, there's none available, you had to plan for the next day. It's not like, you know, an immediate service, but nothing is like, even if you use, I don't know, the Uber app in certain areas of the UK, you do wait for a long time because of the availability of taxis. If you use it in London, of course, it's immediate. So it's all based on the demand, as the name says. However, I'm not saying there can't be improvements. There obviously can be. That's the whole point of having the trials. Like West Huntingdonshire is still a trial area. Now it's expanding those trial areas. The whole idea is to run them for like, you know, a good few months, to have enough data to perhaps improve them, like, you know, in the next year and years following that. And that's why it's important, people, you know, including councillors who actually use those services to feed back the combined authority to raise those points. And that is the type of conversation we need to have, rather than, you know, going on the Facebook group and being like, well, the mayor raised the tax, there's no buses for 2 years, when there actually are, and demonstrably there are, not only Tiger on demand, but the routes that are cut by Stagecoach previously that are saved, and some additional new routes and improvements in the times and so on. So if you're going to start with the starting point of, you know, like, I am going to create my next target letter and my next leaflet by saying 2 years no buses, what an outrage, you are cutting off a lot of the reasonable people of different political persuasions who actually want to say, well, it's actually quite a good idea, but I have those reservations, or, you know, it's good in principle, but I tried it and it didn't work for me, or I actually have a better way to run it, or I actually have other suggestions. All it's doing is creating this outrage politics, this petition-led, headline-led politics, which we see at the national level as well from different parties, which just disengages people from my point of view. So what I want to see as a councillor is people actually using it, who, you know, can be like very critical. Actually, do send me the criticism, do send me where it doesn't work, and I'll make sure to represent those views and to try to make those services better. And that's the starting point. That's where we should start from, rather than, you know, like just using negative language and saying nothing works, like I'm the only person who can save the world, because politics is complicated. A lot of those funding arrangements are complex, and yes, you know, whoever gets elected will face similar challenges around funding and delivering services that don't work on a commercial basis. So yes, let's be reasonable about this, I say.
Yeah, I mean, from Paul's perspective, I would be worried, because Paul's biggest threat in the mayoral election is, and I agree with everything you've said about buses. Paul's biggest threat in the mayoral election is reform, and it's the reform vote in Cambridgeshire that potentially will win or lose it for Paul. And if reform come out with a really positive agenda that people will buy into, Paul's got nowhere to go at the moment. And the last thing I want is reform having success in this county. I have to say, I don't like the extremes of politics. But I agree with you. What we're starting to see is something really important emerge in Cambridgeshire. And I watch council meetings, and I watched the council meeting last night from a council that is adjacent to us, and they mentioned the growth in bus services in Cambridgeshire, and that was a Conservative authority. And so, I just want to say, I don't just randomly watch council meetings. That's for work, by the way. I'm not that sad, but there are people are mentioning
we all know that's not true, Martin.
but people are mentioning it, and that's something. That counts for something. Cambridgeshire is a county where its services and what it delivers, because of what Cambridgeshire is about, it should be mentioned everywhere and as an example of best practice. And that's what this is emerging into. And that's special for Cambridgeshire. That's great. It's good for our economy. Again, people will notice that. People that are looking to invest in Cambridgeshire will notice it. And that's great.
I do watch council meetings for just for fun, especially sometimes when I'm cooking or cleaning the house. Like I put on Peterborough live stream, and often I'm quite shocked at some of the things that are being said there. But yeah, I do also, I watch them for work but also for pleasure in my spare time.
It's worth saying that I do think that Whittlesey is a big gap at the moment in that on-demand service, and Whittlesey is absolutely right for it at the moment. And I hope that that's coming, and that's one of the questions I'll probably be asking on Sunday. But I hope Whittlesey has a future with it, because I do think it will do big things for Whittlesey
and Ramsey as well. Being in the centre of kind of the district and the county, it would be logistically a good place to have one as well. So let's hope it spreads out eventually and it's all a success.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is on that. I mean, the person I was talking to was the councillor I was having the exchange with, Councillor Ross Martin, who is he the leader of the Conservative group at the district?
So he is, has been since May, been the leader of the Conservative group. He's also a parliamentary aide to the new MP as well. So he is quite political.
Well, yeah, but I mean, fair enough. I mean, but so he lives up that way. He has experience of the service that I don't have, and it's like, if the service needs improving, then it needs improving. Let's see, get the data on how it's working. It's just it was starting from the shared reality that there is in fact the Tiger on Demand bus service across the West Huntingdon region, including places like Keystone and so on. But there's I mean, I was thinking about this in what the issue might be, and it's like you've got within the West Huntingdonshire area, you've got two big big sort of centres of gravity in Huntingdon and St Neots, and it may be that they're pulling the things towards them, so that if you're then further out from them, you can't get them. The other thing is, one of the things I've done is use Tiger on Demand to get from Huntingdon to St Neots. If I'm going to, when I've gone from, because I can easily get to the bus station in Huntingdon to get the Tiger on Demand, but then if I'm going into somewhere in St Neots that isn't on a bus route, the Tiger on Demand has worked well, but that that may not be the best use case for it. And actually, you should be saying, you should be getting the 66 down from Huntingdon to St Neots. So we've got a couple of questions about Tiger on Demand. So I'll take the first one from Andrew Richard Jones. Is the Tiger on Demand service reliable enough to take you to catch another bus?
No.
Sorry?
No is the answer. It's never going to be. It's not intended for that, is it? It's not intended.
I think it depends where it is. Like, I think if you're going from, I don't know, one of the villages in West Huntingdonshire to Cambridge, to the Huntingdon bus station stop or Hinchinbrook area, you could connect with the B. But then again, the question depends on how you time it.
Yeah.
That's one of the, I guess, the limitations for me, because if you had a properly integrated bus system, which I don't think is possible unless you have franchising or a similar system to London or Manchester. You can't really have everything integrated, the same thing in terms of, I would like to have the same type of ticketing. I would like to have literally the same app where you have all the bus routes. At the moment, you have obviously different operators, different timetables. You can check, the bus timetable app, but you don't have like one, if you had, the Tiger network as such with only one way, you could, probably integrate the Tiger on Demand route from your village to Huntington bus station and the Huntington bus station to Cambridge, for example, with hopefully a fast Cambridge to Huntington bus, which we'll discuss a bit later. At the moment, the operator didn't proceed with, after they won the bid on that route and 6 other routes as well. But yeah, I would say no, unless you kind of fully integrate the system, although in some cases it's possible.
So yeah, it'll get you to a bus station if there is a bus station. But if you want to hit the 805 bus from St Neots to Cambridge, it's going to be a struggle, isn't it? And it's not. I don't think it's really intended for that just yet, not at this scale.
I mean, just follow up from Andrew. So Granston kids can't rely on a Tiger to get them to Camborne every day for an onward bus to Cambridge. That's a shame. So I don't know. It's possible that you could book in advance, every day, but I don't think that's what it's designed for. It's designed for the occasional journeys and so on. You could book it so that you arrive, you arrive 20 minutes before your bus is due to go. I mean, the point is it's demand responsive. So when you book it, it gives you a window in which between it's going to arrive and which it's going to drop you off. Because after you book it, other people may, it may also get routed to do like a similar, someone else, so it slightly diverts and so on on the way to pick someone up here, drop you there, pick someone up there, drop someone there. So it's never going to be, we want to get you there, we're going to get you there for exactly 11:37. So you can get the bus at 11:38, but you can time it so that you get there 20 minutes earlier. If you've got a service like something like Grandad's kids can't rely on a Tiger to get them to Camborne every day for an on bus to Cambridge, that's a difficult one, and they'll because there'll be lots of places where that's wanted. Where you've got the a village and so on, and it's difficult to make all those connections in where you've got lots of villages. You can't connect them all up with a bus that is also a fast bus.
I think it's worth saying as well that we're in the early days of this thing, and it's the thing Alex said this a couple of times. Let us know and let your representatives know where it isn't working and where it could be better, because it will evolve and it will get better. And I think for me, where the Tiger thing will work very well is where you're on a site, or where you're in a location where there is a regular bus route and you need the Tiger to get to that point. If you've got a regular bus route that's running every 20 minutes or whatever, then you've got something that you can make work. And it's worth repeating. It's not going to be perfect at the moment. This is all new, but it's still at a point where Cambridgeshire is is talking about what it can do and what it needs to do with its bus services, instead of having conversations about where they're going to be cut.
Yeah, I mean, and this thing, we make the comparisons with the B network in Manchester and so on. The thing is, Manchester, the Greater Manchester area is much more built up. It's much higher population density, so it's going to work. I'm going to pick up Andrew's other comment. Better not sell the dad's taxi just yet, then. But the thing is, if you're just taking them a short journey to catch the bus, that is much more sustainable. If the alternative is driving into Cambridge, you're still getting the bus into Cambridge. There's a couple of ones from Peter Goldsmith that I'm going to pick up. My inference from that is it's not intended for crucial appointments, etc. I think you need to leave enough time. So when I've taken it, it gives you a sort of window of when it's going to pick you up, when you're going to arrive. I mean, from recollection, it's about 10 minutes. So you could absolutely use it to go to from one of the villages to Hinchingbrook Hospital for an appointment. You could absolutely do that. I'd just say make sure you're leaving enough time to be there in advance. But I'd say that whichever mode of travel you're taking, to be honest, particularly as my wife works at Hinchingbrook, and getting in and out of Hinchingbrook in the mornings and the evenings by motor car can be challenging because it gets really backed up. So I think you can use it, Peter, for appointments, but I think you've got to be realistic about traffic jams happen and so on.
But can I just say, you've also have to be realistic in expectations. We've gone from a situation where these rural areas, including Andrew, who lives in Gransden, area which I represent, doesn't have any buses. Well, very few buses, to having some buses. Yeah, we're not going to go from having 0 buses to having an Uber level of reliability overnight, are we? Or maybe not ever, but it's introducing bus services to places that don't already have bus services, and if they're successful, I guess it will be scaled up over time. Is the answer?
And if you've got older kids, you think about what this is doing. You've got the Tiger on the demand service and the Tiger bus service, and it's giving people access to buses and young people access at buses in a way that's only going to cost them £1 for a journey. I just think this, we're in a good place at the moment. And the more we can sustain the growth we're seeing at the moment in bus services, the better.
The other thing, it's this is part of the, it's capped at £2, or I think it's £2 for a journey. If you've got a bus pass, the bus pass is valid, and so on. So it's that. The other thing is compare the cost to what a taxi would cost you. Which because if you call a taxi and say, can I have a taxi for straight away, they might say, well, no, we haven't got one, and it's a fraction of the cost. So the
other factors are like obviously the affordability of it, but I would say on the question of appointments, I actually think it does work better when you have something pre-planned, because if I know, I don't know, 2 weeks ago I have to be at the hospital at like 10 o'clock on this day, I will definitely be able to book it. However, if now I have to say, I have to pick someone up or to meet someone at 9 a.m., probably if I go like, okay, I want to go from Hinchingbrook to Covington, probably it will say no service available, but if I check in a few hours or tomorrow, it will be. So I think it works the opposite way. It does work for things that have set times and you're going to, and the more in advance you can plan, the better. What it doesn't really work at the moment because of the availability of the vehicles, and obviously it does respond on demand, is that kind of like, I want to go like in the next 20 minutes somewhere, I can book a taxi into like St. Neots. I might not be able to book a Tiger on demand in the next 10 minutes on certain routes because there's no availability. And that's something that like when we had the previous Think service, Stephen and I were trying from Alconbury, and you check, okay, the next hour, next 2 hours, and you don't. He said like, well, there's none available, but if you book it the next day or a few hours later, there is. So I think actually what needs to be worked on is like how, to what extent can you actually make it very responsive, as opposed to being something that I don't know, I want to plan to go into this town on a Saturday from my village, and I know I'm going on Saturday, and I'll book to be there, like I'll go out from 10 a.m. and I'll book to be back at home at 6 o'clock, and I can do that quite easily. But it's not good to do those kind of like last minute plans type of thing.
Do you know that's really interesting, and I think because as people know, my experience with King and now Tiger on Demand has been good. Part of that is because I'm in Huntingdon and so on, and that helps. But I've always been able to make my bookings quite a long, relatively long way in advance. A couple of days out, and that I think has probably helped quite a lot. So can we pick up Peter's questions?
Yeah.
And then we should go on and talk about the other Tiger routes. So what happens if a return booking is cancelled whilst an appointment? I don't know because I've never had that.
But I've had buses cancelled while I've been at appointments, and I've before I'm it's a what if scenario. I can't. It's a difficult one. There's no perfect answer, but there isn't a perfect answer with the systems we've got now either. I've had trains cancelled, and I've been stranded in London. There's no perfect answer to that. And as I say, it'll get better as the routes. First of all, these are what ifs, but they will get better as the routes evolve and as the system matures.
I mean, the other thing, of course, is with franchising, there'd be more cross subsidy effectively, and that could help with the on demand.
Yeah, I agree, and how this fits in with franchising would be an interesting thing to see come forwards in the next few months as we start to see the outcome of the consultation and stuff. Because that to me is going to be really, really interesting, because combining this with franchising could be fascinating. I think Manchester's franchising has kicked in this week, hasn't it? I saw a comment somewhere from Andy Burnham about Manchester's franchising system coming live.
Yeah, there was the last Stagecoach branded bus, I think, left this week, Manchester bus station, and now it's all like B network. So yeah, everything's through the same network.
Should we talk about Stagecoach soon?
Yeah, actually, can we just before we do that, just pick up Peter's other question? How often would you suggest I give Tiger on Demand a try before reverting to a car? I tried Ting. It failed on the 2 occasions I managed to book at the times needed. Regularly checked after those experiences, but can never find availability. For me, I have no confidence in the way it works. I now share a car. These programs need to be solely reliable from the get-go. The only thing I'd say is it was a trial, an experiment. I can't remember what the word is. And I believe that they've learned from different operators and so on. So we'll see how Tiger on Demand goes. I mean, yeah, would be my suggestion.
Can I just say on that, I actually think, I mean, that's a good point. I think it depends on what are you making the journey for. And so I'm very curious to see the data from the Combined Authority, if they're collecting such data after all those Tiger on Demand zones, in terms of like the purpose of the journeys and the different routes, like what are the commuter routes, what are the, routes for like leisure activities, like evening activities, going to market towns on Saturday and Sunday and so on, because I do think that's really important. I think in certain cases, and I would like to have like a car sharing scheme locally, because like I have a car and I don't need it every day, and I would like to actually like have one of those things like there is in Cambridge City, where you can only pay and use it when you need it for certain areas and certain jobs that you do. But at the moment, it's not the case. So I do think the transport system needs a combination of like car sharing schemes, of like regular buses where it makes sense, such as connecting market towns to Cambridge, and the on-demand service. What we're speaking about, if you look at West Huntingdonshire, some of the villages in the Tiger on Demand route have 100 to 300 residents in a village. So like we can easily think how a commercial service cannot make sense, right? A regular service, like probably don't find an operator to do that, and kind of the only solution is having this on-demand system. Now, of course, most people living in more remote and smaller villages do have cars, but I think the service is mainly intended for people who, for example, like want to go somewhere on a weekend without a car, or the people that I met. So, for example, I was in one of the villages recently, and I spoke to a lady who said, well, I can't drive anymore, and I feel like, locked in my house, like, every time I want to go somewhere, because I have to rely on, like calling family members and someone want to pick me up, get me somewhere, because I can't drive anymore, and there's literally no bus. And then spoke about the on-demand service and so on. So I think it does serve a social function as well for people who like either cannot drive anymore or don't have a car, for whom this is the only option, and it's better than having nothing. Now, if you have a car and use it every day, I get it, how difficult it is to say, well, I have to book everything in advance and try to plan my work commute on a regular basis with Tiger on Demand. But I think that's for people who are driving. every day at the moment. What I'm really interested in from the transport perspective is development of the park and rides, because it does make a difference to me to go to, like St. Ives and get the bus into Cambridge and not have to deal with like parking in central Cambridge or like driving into Cambridge in the first place, as opposed to not having that at all and having to drive into Cambridge like for work, for example. So I think they're like different solutions for different types of journeys and why
I travel into Peterborough a lot, and increasingly I'm traveling by bus now. I have to say, and the service that makes that easier is going to work. And you can't knock it. The first thing you're doing is saving on the cost of the cost of parking. And that's really important. You're not going to worry about, if you're going for shopping or leisure or whatever in Peterborough, you're not going to worry about about having a beer and all those things. It's such a great service. And same, from Whittlesea to Peterborough, we've now got the late service, which is at 11:25, which means you can stay in the pubs until they close and have a meal, do whatever, and then catch a bus home. And and the bus is going to cost you £2. It's great.
So I actually think that time thing is really important. I'm thinking particularly for Huntingdon and the nighttime economy, but also applies to village pubs. If it's easier to get there in the evening, now it's going to be very difficult to cover, economically to cover the whole area, to do that. But if you can have late buses,
I think what's going to happen is the service has got to evolve in the clusters in the way it is with clusters at the moment, and then somewhere along the line, when you get to a peak with that and you get to where you need to be with it, you can then look at how those clusters interlink and things like that, and then you start to create something that's comprehensive. I still like the idea of a route that basically runs from Peterborough to Cambridge, that's just dedicated straight bus route, where you've got the bus stops at strategic locations. The idea being then you could use a ting service or something to feed into that that strategic route, and those sort of things sort of interest me at the moment. How this evolves, and that's the thing. As I say, I'd love to see what all the mayoral candidates' visions are for how they're going to expand it and make it work, because I think this is exciting for Cambridgeshire, and we should do more things that are exciting for Cambridgeshire.
So I was just checking the Tiger on Demand. I just put again like Molesworth, because I was using an example as an area that no buses exist. And I think the difference is, right, I go on Google and I'm like, okay, like people go, no bus, 22 minutes drive from where I am, right? I go to Tiger on Demand. Actually, I'm actually quite surprised it's so quick. I have to say, I don't have high hopes usually for bus apps and so on. But yeah, I can be picked up at 9:40 a.m. So like in an hour and 10 minutes, and get Tiger on Demand to Molesworth. So there's something that I think for a lot of the places where there was actually very little access to public transport, it is a good thing. Of course, if I lived in Cambridge and I want to go to North Cambridge, and I think I have to wait an hour for a bus, that is something like, well, I live in a city, I should have a bus every 10 minutes or every 5 minutes from an area. But I think, and I lived before in areas with very little or no public transport, having something that could be, in an hour or 2 hours, even planned in advance compared to nothing, is an improvement. And I don't think we should underestimate that. However, at the same time, I recognize it's not perfect, but I don't think we can ever subsidize, with taxpayer money, a service that is exactly immediate and on demand, because it will cost a lot of money that at the moment, even with the current mayoral pre-setted funds, not only this, but the £1 passes for young people, for the Tiger Pass, getting from May, being able to use your concessionary bus pass before 9:30 a.m. from May and things like that. It is challenging financially as it is to subsidize this. So I don't think we can have the Uber style everywhere, but that's my personal view.
Should we move on, just somewhere at the time, on to the other Tiger issue?
Yeah.
You people may have seen there was a statement that came out from the Combined Authority day before yesterday, saying that a number of an unnamed bus operator had withdrawn from bidding for operating a set of 7 routes, and all of it mysterious, couldn't be named for legal reasons. Stagecoach then came out, Darren Rowe, friend of the show, and said and came out. So actually, we're the bus company. And this was, and correct me if I'm getting this wrong, please, because I don't have the note in front of me, I'm afraid. We were going through it, but the costs changed because of the increase in the employer's NICs, employer's NI. And there were other concerns about running a subsidised bus alongside where there's already a commercial route and something else. And let's not go back to Paul Bristow, because I don't think it's fair, but he mentioned this on his Facebook as well. Nick has come out and said that they're going to be retendering those routes, and so the that is going to be that should hopefully still be in by, or the intention is for that to be in by the spring. So the bus routes that are affected were Tiger 1, Huntingdon to Cambridge, Tiger 2 and 3, which is Cambridge North and South connections, Tiger 4 and 5, Soham to Cambridge and Newmarket to Cambridge, Tiger 7, Chatteris to Wisbech, Tiger 9, Peterborough Orbital. So that is a frustration. Particularly for me, because I think the Tiger 1 was the express service from Huntingdon to Cambridge.
It's something I've been banging on about for the last 3 years, being like, why does it take 1 hour 45 to get into Cambridge? It's ridiculous. It's a commuter.
Yeah, I mean, I've got it here. So the route's part of a package of 53 services funded through the mayoral precept. 38 routes across the region already up and running, with a further 4 Tiger on Demand services set to launch this weekend, covering Fenton East Cambs and 2 in South Cambs. It's unfortunate.
It's not the first time, is it, that Stagecoach has pulled the rug on Nick Johnson's plans. I mean, we had this whole thing before when they cancelled a load of services, which forced Whippet to try and take up the slack. Who took on some of the contracts. Whippet didn't have the buses, and it damaged Whippet's reliability and credibility. And kind of, it's the best argument possible, I think, for all-in bus franchising, is that we don't be able to play nicely between the mayoral office and the bus companies. And so having more control, and commercial control seems like a very sensible move at the moment.
So can I just come in? I've got the press release here from Stagecoach. I'll just read part of it. We wish to clarify the following. We've not withdrawn from the tender process. The decision to retender the routes was taken by the CPCA. Inconsistencies in the award letter caused several delays in the conclusion of contract work to resolve these delays, and then the subsequent government announcement on the NI increase meant we asked for an increase in the tender prices to be considered, and the thing about operating a tender service where a commercial one exists. And they've said, and Darren Rowe said, we remain committed to working with CPCA to deliver more bus services in Cambs and Peterborough, but needing time and clarity in the procurement process to do this. The employer's next thing that's an interesting one that's worth talking about. This whole thing, whether we withdrawn or not withdrawn, they're not going ahead with it, and I don't know if that's because that's ultimately what matters, not who exactly.
I mean, the technicalities of what withdrawn means and everything else is sort of irrelevant. The reality is the service isn't happening. I'm sure the combined authority will sit there and look at it and say, what could we have done better? But you have to ask a number of questions, and this has really disappointed me, because I thought Darren, when he came on this show, was really, really good, actually. But as an example, the national insurance thing, we know, it's an issue up and down the country, and we know that. But there's a reality, which is we've also got other Tiger on Demand services operating that have been tendered for, that are new this week, that are also operating in the light of that national insurance increase. And there are companies up and down the country that are having to deal with this increase. As a reality, that don't have the opportunity to just go cap in hand to the taxpayer and say, give us more. I do think I do think by and large, my view is Stagecoach have got this wrong. I'd love to see more information that disproves that, but certainly the suggestion that this is a failure of the combined authority, I would challenge. I'm sure there are things the combined authority would look at and say maybe, but when you come to these situations, and I can give some examples of things we did as a county council, when I was leader and when I was a cabinet member, and where you have to show strength, and you have to, because otherwise you create problems for yourself further down the line.
Yeah, I think also like people putting blame on and saying, oh, it's Nick's fault. Like, okay, so how it works? So you have this procurement process, you have the bid. So like, X operator wins the bid. Indeed, I'm not saying the circumstances can change. So, and I applied, in a very different sector for local authority tenders, work in the charity sector. And you do your budget and you can think, okay, there are other factors such as, this time national insurance, or it can be like any number of things. We saw it all with the COVID impact on business as well. And I think, okay, I sent a budget that doesn't really make sense commercially or otherwise for me, and you have the choice, and then to do that, you can say, actually, I don't want to run this anymore, right? Even if you win, you win the bid. What has to happen then? You have to restart the process, because people are asking, why can't the second one, the second one ranked can just get the service? You have to restart. You have to allow again all the operators opportunity to put in their bids, and then again select following the process the winning. I think there are exemptions in the procurement in which that is not the case when it's something like very urgent or like certain circumstances, but in this case you have to run it again, therefore creating the delay. But from the operator's perspective, they are under the system we have at the moment, they're entitled to do that. And whether it is in this case them saying, well, it's national insurance increase that meant we had to ask for more money, it could have been something else under a different economic circumstance, they can do that. And it is not, Nick can't just say like, well, you're not allowed to do that because that's how the system operates at the moment. So I've seen some comments that people perhaps were confused on how the process works. Like, he can't just like step in and say like, no, you'll just like run the service. Like, they're entitled to say, no, we don't want it anymore.
Yeah, it's just some examples of where I have had to, where we had to be tough as a county. One of them actually is the guided bus. When the guided bus route was being constructed, we had horrendous issues with the contractor, and this is, we were tough in a different way there, but the contractor, in our view, was basically behaving in a way that they wanted to get rid of their obligations by us kicking them off the contract and saying they'd frustrated the contract, and we refused to do it. And instead, this thing went on basically at snail's pace for a while until eventually it was delivered. But there was a strength within there, because it had been the real easy thing for us to say, you frustrated the contract, off you go. But if you remember at the end of that process, when it came to mediation over the costs of it, the county council got, I can't remember the exact figure, it was either 20 million or 30 million back for the contractor, which is pretty unprecedented. And the other one where we did things the other way, where you've got to be strong, was the central library. When we had a contractor in building the central library and it just wasn't going well and they weren't doing it well, and you just say bye-bye, and we literally locked the doors on them and retendered. And you've got to have the strength of character to do that as a local authority. We get loads and loads of stick about the way about cost overruns and all sorts of things within the tendering process, and the only way you can try and deter that is having some strength of character and doing what's right. The easy thing to do here would be for Nick to have said, okay, let's sort it, let's pay them the extra national insurance, and I bet if they'd paid them the extra national insurance money, the other problems would have gone away.
So there's also an interesting dynamic here in that So buses run their own, bus companies can run their own services. In terms of subsidised services, it's basically a monopsony. There's only one organisation doing it. It's not quite a monopoly provider, but Stagecoach is far and away the biggest provider of bus services.
I think if you go back to the 2011 report, I think they would say it's a monopoly provider.
Yeah, although I mean it does provide a lot of services. I think, to be fair, things like the Bus Alliance, you've got Jews doing stuff on behalf of Stagecoach, and there are other, there have been other entrants to the market. So Central Connect is running some new routes, and so on. There's been more going to other bus providers. So I don't know what it used to be like, but it feels like they have a strong or dominant position rather than a monopolistic position. Is that fair?
No, I disagree. The monopoly will be broken when the other major operators are starting to tender for routes within the franchising system. When Aviva and whoever and First Group are starting to tender, that's when the monopoly will be broken. The only other way the monopoly will seriously be broken is if companies like Whippet and whoever grow to a point where they're really able to challenge the monopoly, but they're not at the moment. Mm-hmm. And when it comes down to it, we do have a monopoly still, in my view. And I think the 2011, I know it's a long time ago, but that report, I don't think the circumstances have changed significantly since then. I think what has changed is Stagecoach working with others rather than doing what they were doing then, which is undercutting others so that they basically develop monopolies on the routes. And that did happen on the route from Whittlesea to Peterborough.
Yeah, sure. And going back to when deregulation happened, there were a lot of, I think Stagecoach got quite a lot of criticism for, this is going back to the 80s, or have I got my dates wrong? But
Well, deregulation happened under Margaret Thatcher, I believe. So I think that's right.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's a difficult one. The thing is competition is good, and I guess the idea is we're gonna have generally competition is good. It's not an unbridled good. We'll have franchise competition through franchising, but and that does make it easier for. I suppose the thing is that if you're a competitor company, you can grow more slowly because you can take a few routes at a time. Or a few bundles of routes at a time, depending on exactly how they do it. It's interesting. The thing is, there is still going to be substantial private involvement in providing buses, and I kind of think that's a good thing. I mean, it's like in London, the buses are all they're all big and red and well, they're not all big, but they're all red, and it works as an integrated system and all the rest of it. But if you look on them all, it says they're provided by Go Ahead or whoever it is, all the rest of it. So you've still got hopefully got the private sector expertise in. And also some of the logic of they want to run an efficient service and this sort of thing.
One of the things you could do under franchising is you could put a system in place where a single provider is not allowed to have more than X% of the routes. And that might be one of the ways of breaking the monopoly up. Have you seen? Sorry, have we put Andrew's comment up here? By the way, because it is quite interesting. He's saying the same thing. I do think there is competition there, and enough competition within the system to make that work. But it is going to be difficult, and the best way is the best way, in my opinion, is to start getting to a point where you make that happen and you make it worthwhile. The Jews and the Whippets actually starting to invest, invest in winning these franchises, but some of this can change. And you know what's exciting for me about franchising, as I said, I watched another council's meeting last night where they were talking about bidding for with other councils for a combined authority mayor, and you know, one of the reasons was bus franchising. You know, they're sitting there saying, you know, look at what's happening with bus franchising. You know, and that's you know, and I was sitting there watching Conservative councillors saying, you know, we need this, and one of the reasons is bus franchising. So other people are getting excited about things that Cambridgeshire are well on the way to doing.
The I was going to say something deep and meaningful, but it's sorry. The other thing to pick up on that and on Andrew's point is as franchising grows and bus franchising becomes more common across the country, there will be other entrants to the market, or potentially there will be other entrants to the market, and I think that's quite interesting as well. You know, you know the you know, in the same way when railways, new companies come in and say, okay, we're going to try to do railways and so on, with greater or less success, but you know, you can see that happening.
Well, one of the things that's interesting with the railway, we get criticised in this country, and I think quite rightly in some ways, for the fact that, you know, as an example, DB own some of our train operators. I know that's going to change as well, but actually, there's a thought there that if the Avivas of this world don't start to come in and get into contact in competition with Stagecoach in franchising and stuff like that, one of the things you will do is get operators from overseas starting to bid into franchising, you know, to develop in this country. And so, and I do think that would happen. I don't think it would be a bad thing in the short term.
But on the railways, we've got the renationalisation now. Just to be clear, I'm in favour of what's being proposed and all the rest of it. The thing that's good, that's really important about the proposals for changing the railways is you'll have a sort of controlling mind, or you know, there will be someone organising the system, which there hasn't been, and it's been, you know, there are so many bodies involved in the railway. The other thing with the railway is what we're not dealing with is the Roscos, the rolling stock companies who own and then lease out the trains, and this is possibly getting past coffee buses and politics, but I think that's actually that's still going to be a problem. The thing is,
well, I'm not against the nationalisation of the railways. I think because it had become very, very disjointed. But my thing is that I don't think the privatization in principle was a bad thing. I think the way it was undertaken was
it was a disaster.
The best idea, and you know, one of the things about bringing it back in is to have a really good look at, you know, have a genuinely really good look at, you know, if and when we do this again, what's the best way of doing it? Because there is a reality that people forget how bad British Rail was before that happened. And
so yes, but remember that partly that was it hadn't been invested in. So don't get me wrong, I remember the British Rail sandwich. So you know, you know, anybody who's been on who ever went on a super sprinter knows how awful they are. But sectorization had worked. That you know, that was a good thing. The you know, the Red Star and so on, and also it was starved of investment. You know, you didn't have the funding going into railways, which is part of the reason. I mean, the classic one is the East Coast Main Line, where electrification, British Rail were told they could do it, but basically had to do it from within existing budgets, and that meant it was done cheaply. So you know, and we you know, that can be the right decision or the wrong decision.
But if you look, you
still have that problem now. Countries getting blown down up north that are holding wires.
But if you look at government in the last 14 years, and the way government has been in the last 14 years, 15 years, you could argue nearly, but what's to say, and what is the assurance that that won't happen in the future?
None.
You know, and that, and So I mean that's the concern that I have, that it's one of the big things about politics in general, but in particular in this country, is one of the most important things that a politician can do is understand the lessons of history. And we completely fail to do it, and we're going through a cycle at the moment where somewhere where we were in the late 60s, early 70s, and it's pretty, you can argue in other ways we're going back to where we were in the 30s, but
go on.
But there is a real danger that we don't, we haven't learned those lessons, and all we're going to do is repeat the same cycle. And I have real concerns about that, and that's why I'm not a fan of privatization in principle. I see and understand and support why privatization of the railways has happened, but I think they need to start thinking about a way forward as well.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's the thing is you could see a system where, so you've got, so so this is going to be slightly strange position to take. One of the things I think has been quite interesting with that's come out of how the railways are run is the open access operators, and you've got some. There are routes that would not exist other than for open access. So the route up to Hull and so on. You've got the Lumo trains coming on. There's also a railway cooperative coming up, which is being set up, which is very interesting for me because it's down in Yeovil way. So there is that. It's like I said. I think the big advantage is the coordination. I do wonder if instead of the sort of the model we had, which was where, so basically if on the railways it was more of a fee for service model, that would be a better way of doing it. So I mean there's also the practicality now of within the state writ large, we don't have the expertise there that we used to because it was privatized.
No, I agree. And with that, some of the timetabling problems we had a few years back were caused by that. They were caused by the fact that there's very, very inexperienced people trying to introduce new timetables, and that's right. And one of the things that's been really good from the Peterborough route is the way we've got this new route that runs sadly through St Pancras, which confuses things a little bit, but basically that runs right down into near Brighton, and basically cut through London. It's a great system. I went to London Bridge the other day, and I was able to catch a train straight from Peterborough to London Bridge.
It's great. I mean, it's got to go through St Pancras, I think, so it can use the canal tunnels.
No, I know why. I know exactly why, but it confuses things because the other Peterborough trains go from King's Cross.
But the thing is that's I mean, you'll come through Huntingdon on the way. On the occasions I go into London for occasionally I have to go in for work. It's great because I can go straight to Farringdon. The other thing is I can get a train from Huntingdon direct to Gatwick.
Yep.
That's brilliant.
No, absolutely, and I've done that as well, and I agree. It's excellent, and those things are. Those things are really important, and you have to be fair. Those are things that have happened under a railway system that has been privatised.
I'll go, guys. See you later.
I think we're probably
we had a so I think we may have bored Stephen and Alex to tears.
I've just got to go to work is the main thing, but it was very interesting anyway. See that goes by. Okay,
take care. But no, we should. We probably should wrap up, and also I've got a few bits I've got to go and do. I've just realised the time. No, I accept that, and the other thing, and this is one of the things. There has been a big increase in the number of people, a huge increase in the number of people travelling by train. Now, I would say that part of that is that sometimes there hasn't been a lot of choice, and also we've seen changes in the way people live. And that's part of why that has happened. But there has been a big increase in rail ridership, which is good. the issue I have is the amount of public subsidy that is going in doesn't always seem to have, sort of provided the benefit you would want.
What I would say to that, there's two things. First one is, in terms of the public subsidy, I'm dragging this debate out. You can make the same argument about buses. There are some of the buses in Cambridgeshire that are costing a fortune to take passengers, per passenger. And, looking at the mayor's vision, I'm not sure that's something that we're going to deal with. And there are people that are benefited by that, even though we're subsidising that a lot. That where it's really important, especially older people, is
that's entirely fair.
The other thing I would say as a prediction is the way technology is moving forward. My view is heavy rail has got about 10 to 15 years before it starts to diminish.
Really? I mean, but equally, I mean, if you want to go from I don't know, there's always going to be people wanting to commute into London, and that's going to be heavy rail.
Well, yeah, but there's coming a time where the frustration is going to come. There are technologies emerging that will get people there in a third of the time.
Like,
these tunnel systems where you can literally push somebody along a tunnel.
But okay, I mean, yes, but I think that's a long way from being ready. And even then,
well, that's why 10 to 15 years. Technology moves pretty fast.
It does. And there's the general thing that things happen. Things happen. Technology develops slower in the short term than you expect, but faster in the long term. The thing is, you still need a physical thing. Whether it's a road or a railway or a tunnel, the pressure tunnel. And we've got lots of railways laid down, and it would be the practicality of how you change that.
No, absolutely, but someone somewhere along the line is going to make the change happen because they'll realise it needs to, and you've got options there. It just, you can see the sense in it, and you've also got these systems emerging that will take freight off the roads and off the rail as well, and that diminishes it will certainly diminish the value and the productivity of rail in that sense as well.
Yeah, I mean, and of course you've got the if driverless vehicles become a thing, and all sorts of different things. I mean, this is the thing. The other one, if you're always going to need the last mile, so there's always going to be a role for you're always going to have freight on roads, but if it would
you're not. I'm just saying, you're not.
No, for the last mile, unless you're bringing stuff.
The last mile. The last mile is the bit where we've probably made most progress. With the drone technology that Amazon are using, and that is almost certainly going to expand. You could say for heavy stuff, but for heavy stuff, you use a bigger drone.
Well, yeah, but there's also just an energy thing that you need more energy to fly something than to push it along the ground. I mean, look, don't get me wrong. Just on a that would be amazing. If I could order a Subway to be delivered by drone, I'd be even fatter than I am. So I would be doing that every lunchtime, just so I could go outside and literally, like manna from heaven, have a Subway dropped into my hand.
What I'm looking forward to is the day where I can send an email to. Or place an order on my local pub and have a firkin of ale delivered.
Okay, right. We should probably wrap up. But we've got a question here from Matt Bunting. What's the plans of bus franchising so far? Where did the Tiger brand rise from, please? So I think the Tiger brand is a reference to the Fen Tigers, isn't it?
I believe so. So if anybody doesn't know about the Fen Tigers, there was a Dutch guy called, I've forgotten his name, apologies, Dutch engineer, who...
This Cornelius Van Muyden.
Van Muyden, yeah, who basically was brought in to drain the fens. And he faced some really, really strong opposition from the Fendon people, because of the impact it would have on their lives. And bearing in mind, Fenland people were making their living, and they were hunting and everything, you know, in the fens. And he used the phrase "fen tigers" to describe the opposition that they put up. So that's where that comes from. And it was also adopted, of course, by Dave Boy Green, who was from Chatteris when he was very active and very, very successful boxer. So that's where that comes from. And the fen tiger is on the Fenland flag, which is being pushed for formal recognition at the moment as well. So I can answer that one.
There's a speedway team called the Fen Tigers, and there's Mildenhall.
All right.
I used to follow speedway. And there's also the Cat. You know, there's supposedly a big, like,
yeah,
you know, who knows? On what's the plans with bus franchising? That's a really big question, Matt, and we're just wrapping up. But I think the consultation has finished, and the results of that are going to be coming out soon.
And then we've got to see whether it goes ahead between now and the mayoral election, or whether it waits until the mayoral election. And I've already said on here, I think they should go ahead and get it happening.
Get it done. Yeah. Right. Shall we wrap up there?
I think we're done, aren't we?
Yeah, I think so. Well, thanks, Martin. Thanks, Alex and Stephen, who had to dash on. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And we'll see you all next week. We should probably at some point do a bit more of a deep dive into the devolution stuff.
I think we should. Yeah, I think so.
Cool. All right. Take care, everyone.
Cheers, all.